Massive student cuts are coming. Are you impacted with the changes? Starting 1st Jan 2025 with fewer student spots available, will you be one of the lucky ones to get in? Australia's new 2025 student cap could drastically impact your dreams of studying here. What does this cap mean for you getting into your dream university? Stick around as I explain how these changes could change everything for your future plans to study in Australia. Don't make the mistake of being unprepared. Stay informed and get ahead of these big changes. If you are planning to study in Australia or are already on your way, this video is for you. In just few minutes, you will learn how the new student cap affects universities and vocational schools, who gets special exemption, and how your plans to study in Australia could change. You'll also see how things have changed in the past and what you need to know to make sure you don't miss out. This could affect everything from where you study to how much your tuition fee will cost. Here's how I have set up the video for you. First, I will explain what the new student cap means and how it affects you. Next, I will talk about who might be able to avoid these limits with exemptions. Then I will show you how this cap affects both university and vocational education. After that, we will look at how things have changed in the past to help understand what's coming. Okay, now let's start with the obvious question. What are these new caps? Well, here's a significant update that might affect your plans. Education Minister Jason Clay announced the new cap on international student numbers for 2025. Curious about how this might impact you? Let's break it down. Starting January 1st, 2025, Australia will welcome maximum of 270,000 new international students. This national planning level sets the stage for the number of students allowed to kick off their studies in Australia each year. But how will these spots be allocated? They will be divided between higher education and vocational education providers. There are few exceptions to this rule. More on that little bit later in the video. You might wonder, how exactly does the government define a new student? According to Department of Education, you'll be considered a new international student when you arrive in Australia and begin your first non-exempt course at your initial school. And if you decide to switch schools or course, you will be counted again. This number is set to be reviewed annually. Please note that this cap is subject to approval of legislation, meaning it has not come into effect yet. If the legislation is passed, this cap will be implemented starting January 1st, 2025. I will keep you guys posted with the new video if that happens. Now let's talk about the second obvious question, how they have distributed the numbers. I will try to keep this really simple for you. Let's break down the information about student enrollments in a way that's easier to understand. First, let's talk about universities providing higher education. The Australian government has placed limits on how many students universities can enroll next year. Public universities can enroll a maximum of 145,000 students. In addition to that, there are 30,000 spots available for private universities and other higher education providers. The government has also introduced a limit for public universities called the International Student Profiles. This means each public university will have its own limit on how many international students they can accept. The government wants universities to build more student housings by 2026 if they want to increase the number of international students they accept in future. Now, let's focus on vocational education providers. For vocational education, like trade schools or training colleges, the government has capped new enrollments at 95,000 students for 2025. There is another important point here. The schools that have a lot of international students will get less allocated spots. The government wants vocational schools to enroll more local students from Australia to increase diversity. Schools with too many international students will get fewer spots. This helps make sure there's better balance and more diversity between local and international students. So let's do a quick recap on the numbers. 145,000 spots for public universities, 30,000 spots for private universities and higher education providers, 95,000 spots for vocational education. Now, before I move on to number 4 on the list, if you are still with me, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Your support isn't just a click, it's what keeps me going and helps me bring you more valuable content. It truly means the world to me. Okay, now let's talk about the important point. Who's exempt from the cap? Did you know some students won't be affected by Australia's new student caps? Let's dive in and explore who these lucky students are and how things are changing. Although the new limit affect many international students studying in Australia, some groups are exempt from these restrictions. That means they won't be counted in the cap. Curious who they are? Here's the list. School students studying in Australia. Number 2, students taking ELICOS courses. Higher degree by research students. Non-award students who are not studying for a degree or diploma. Students with Australian government or foreign government scholarships. Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade sponsored students. Students from Australian education agreements or twinning programs. Students from Pacific Islands and Timor-Leste. These groups won't be counted in the student cap for next year, which means they can still come to study without the restrictions that apply to other students. The government is trying to get back to these pre-pandemic levels of higher education. The research I did on the numbers clearly shows overall there's a clear reduction in the number of spots available for both vocational and higher education in 2025. While some universities, particularly regional ones, support this change because they have been given a fair share of international students, others, specifically those with a high proportion of international students, will face challenges due to these cuts. If you are into the numbers, I have added a link in the description down below. Go check it out and dive into the details. Are international students facing bigger challenges than ever before? What's causing the delay and fear in their study plans? Let's uncover the truth and understand the risk rating system. The government uses a risk rating system to assess universities. This system looks at how likely a university is to enroll a student who aren't serious about studying. Universities rated as low risk get faster processing time for visa applications. If these numbers are approved, the risk rating system will be removed as they will be able to manage with new approved numbers. Many universities are really upset because they will have fewer spots for international students. They seriously hope this new law won't pass, but it seems like to go through since both major parties support it. This has become a hot topic, specifically with elections coming up. So what does this mean for you as a student? Universities may start choosing students based on who is more likely to get a visa. They might also raise tuition fees for international students to make up for their losses. And with fewer spots available, there may be fewer scholarships available as well. This means more competition for limited spaces. If you're planning to study in Australia in 2025, it is important to consider your options carefully. Ask yourself, is it still worth it for me? Which city or university suits my needs best? Here are some tips to help you. Research universities. Look into universities that have a good track record for international students. Consider their support services and student reviews. Number 2, explore different cities. Some cities may have more opportunities for international students. Check out the cost of living, lifestyle, and job prospects before you make a move. Number 3, consider alternative courses. If your first choice is highly competitive, think about other courses or institutions that might be less crowded. Number 4, look for scholarship early. Research available scholarships and apply as soon as you can to increase your chances. Number 5, prepare your visa application. Make sure you understand the visa requirements and prepare a strong application. Best of luck.